team. We take the ball from goal to goal like no one's ever seen. We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking so football, 'cause we're the...
And welcome to another edition of PhinManiacs Live. We are back after about taking a week off due to the NFL draft coverage that we brought to you all 3 days. Of course, thanks to Chad and Jeff for covering on Thursday night and others, and then Lewis and I covered on Friday, and then Saturday we had a ton of guests, Lewis and I, and we just rolled right through the day and talked about everything. Tonight, I'm joined by Lewis Sung, Chad Ronnebaum, and Kathy D'Amato. The band is back together. It's been quite a while since we've all been here together. You know, everyone was, pretty much Kathy was out getting drunk every week during the work week, and Chad was out traveling the world around the globe, and it was just me and Lewis with no life, sitting here in front of a computer doing a podcast. So, welcome back, guys. Glad to have everyone back here together.
Good to be back.
Chad, how was your trip? You were gone for, about 8 weeks, traveling from one end of the earth to the other?
It really seemed like it, didn't it? I spent a lot of time in the ocean, actually. I was in St. Thomas, and I stayed at the Island of Palms in South Carolina, and ran into some Dolphins fans, and I did, interestingly, story. I ran into a Patriots fan on the beach in St. Thomas, and
oh, that's gross. I
said, how's it going with Brady and the deflate thing? And he just scowled at me and kept walking. So,
so this was afterwards?
Yeah, this was actually, it was on Monday, so it was right when it was being announced. So it's pretty funny.
That's awesome. So Kathy, how have you been? You've been working and ignoring us basically. How's work going? Your new job?
Work is going great, thank you. We're on a 12-game win streak, which is a new franchise record for the Rockcats. So I'm pretty excited to be a part of a winning team.
Is that a shot at us that we're not a winning team?
No. We'll get there.
Okay. All right, Lewis, you've been taking classes. You finally graduated, right? Or no, you just done for the semester?
No, I was just done for the semester. I'm coming back to taking classes now. I'm actually just coming back from one right now. I kind of had to rush through it just so I could get to you guys. So let that be a testimony to how much I care about y'all.
That's good. So Lewis is a dedicated member of PhinManiacs.com, and he's been covering a lot of community events for us the past week or so. He'll be covering Finn's weekend Friday and Saturday, so we're, of course, looking forward to that. Joining us in just a few minutes will be Arthur Ray, who is the inspirational story, played at Michigan State in college. About 9 years ago or so, he was diagnosed with cancer. It was week after National Signing Day in February 2007, and all of a sudden, just noticed a lump, and then from there went to the doctors and was diagnosed with cancer, fought back, had close to a dozen surgeries, and the doctors told him that he would probably never play again. But then, after rehabbing and working very, very hard, he was able to get back, and he was cleared to play football again at Michigan State in 2011, 4 years after signing the letter to attend there. So that's crazy in itself. In 2012, he was left off the active roster while he finished his degree in communications. But because of his medical history, the NCAA granted him 2 more seasons of eligibility. So from there, he went to Division II Fort Lewis in Durango, Colorado, where he was reunited with former Michigan State coach John Smith, who took over the program just days after Arthur had transferred over. In 2013, he became team captain. In 2014, and he was also a very valuable player in the program, which led him, of course, to the Miami Dolphins, where he was given a tryout just last week. So he's 26 years old, had his first NFL practice on Friday, second one on Saturday. Rookie minicamp wrapped up. He hasn't officially signed a contract. We're going to talk to him about that. And, it's just a great story, and obviously he's not a household name. He's not someone that anyone's expecting to come in and light the world on fire. But the story of perseverance and just getting over that hump and doing all these things, is just something impressive within itself. I don't know what you guys, have to say about that while we're waiting for Arthur to join us.
I mean, it's an inspiring story. We hear all these kinds of stories, stuff like that, and you hear the story of what Randy Gregory had to go through, or of course that he has his own set of issues, and then you have what's the name of the other kid? I forget his name. He was a feature on Shane Ray. Yeah, Shane Ray, and what he had to go through. I mean, but for Arthur Ray Jr., I mean, cancer, man. I mean, people who come back from cancer, they're blessed to even be alive at this point. So for him to be able to come back and actually get to play football again, that's a miracle in and of itself.
Yeah, definitely can't imagine everything that he went through. And then to still have the strength and power and mental toughness to play football. But that just goes to show you how he beat it and how he came forward from it. Chad, do you have you? I know you've been traveling around the world. I don't know if you've been able to keep up with the story or not. But from what you've read, from what you've seen, your thoughts on everything here.
Yeah, I did read the story while I was traveling, and it was just stunning to think of what he's had to endure to still stay on the path to even be trying out with an NFL team right now. I mean, going through chemotherapy is a very difficult thing. I mean, you're going to lose your hair, and you get a lot of your other body parts suffer as well, and it literally makes you weak. And you think about how finely tuned of athlete, all the work you got to do in the weight room, and your dietary needs to make your body at a peak level to compete in the NFL. How difficult that is for a healthy person, and for somebody that has to go through chemotherapy treatment, overcome that, and then come back and build your body up to that competitive a level. It's unbelievable. I mean, you got to take with the average NFL players and multiply that times 10 in difficulty. That's the way I would put it.
Kathy, I know you have friends who are friends with Arthur Ray, and anything that you've heard from your friends and from what they've said about him that have really struck a chord with you?
They just said that he's a really great guy, very enthusiastic, doesn't give up, which is obvious based on his story, and it's a really nice, refreshing story for the NFL to have.
So again, we'll be having Arthur Ray joining us in just a few minutes. I'm checking in with him now. Just shot him a text to make sure he's remembered to come on the show tonight. Later on, at around 8:30 p.m. EST, which is about 20 minutes from now, we'll be joined by Rob Proffitt, better known as Breaking Down Film on Twitter. Very well-known guy in the film genre or film group. Does a lot of work looking at high school recruits, looking at players from college who are not only the big-time players, but also the ones who are flying under the radar. There's a lot of analyzing the film, analyzing, what prospects are coming out, which ones are ready to make an impact. And he also has lots of good information about the Dolphins as a whole. So we'll be looking forward to speaking to him as well later on in the show in about 20 minutes from now. We're going to talk to him about DeVante Parker, Jordan Phillips, Jay Ajayi. I think that's how you say his name, Ajayi. I don't know. One day we'll figure it out, right? We'll talk about the under-the-radar guys, such as the linebackers, Mike Hull, Jeff Luck, Zach Vigil, some of the other guys the Dolphins brought in, perhaps Bobby McCain and Troy Lippett. What kind of impact are they going to have on the team? So we're going to ask him all those questions because he has the experience, he has the knowledge. He knows what he's talking about when it comes to those guys and really, knows the ins and outs of their film, their strengths and their weaknesses and whatnot. Before we have Arthur join us, once he's ready to call in, we had an interesting day today, which is Wednesday, and it's been going on throughout most of the day, and that all started in the morning with, of course, our fan favorite, Miko Grimes. And it started with Armando Salguero of the Miami Herald writing a blog entry today and calling out Miko for the fact that she's called out Ryan Tannehill and others in the past. And from there, it just went nuts. I mean, absolutely crazy. Miko's been going off on her rants all day long. She blocked me earlier today as I tagged her in a tweet that I wrote to Armando Salguero. And Salguero hasn't really said anything about it, which takes incredibly lots of self-restraint And guys, I'm sure you saw it all day long today. Any reaction from you guys on what the heck was happening throughout Dolphins land today?
I mean, what am I supposed to expect? I mean, this is what Miko just does. She chooses and who she likes, and she's going to defend them to the hilt. And if she doesn't like you, well, she's either going to ignore you, or if people come after you because you don't like them, she's gonna attack. I mean, we like Tannehill. Apparently Armando likes Tannehill, and either Miko is pretending that she doesn't know who Armando is, or she really doesn't, in which case I would really be bewildered by the fact that she actually does not know who Armando Salguero is. I mean, he's just as much of a beat writer as anybody else, so, I mean, it is what it is. This is nothing new. This is what's been going on for the past few months now. She gets upset. She starts claiming racism and lack of feminine respect and stuff like that. And really, it's all just a matter of, look, our opinions don't match. That doesn't make me an idiot. And if you don't want me to act like you're an idiot, then just be civil about it. That's all. That's really the only thing that, if she were civil about what she said, there would be a lot less people getting mad at her. But she likes to be rough, and I don't know how else to say it. She's just I don't. Somebody else talk. Somebody. I'm not gonna talk about her anymore. I didn't even know this was gonna be a topic.
I can feel your stress level going up.
Yeah, his blood pressure is going up.
Honestly, guys, I was unaware. I mean, I saw some comments to it, but I actually unfollowed her several months ago just because you end up wasting so much of your time, like going through her, what she's saying on Twitter, and some of it I think is she doesn't have complete control of herself. That's obviously part of it, but I think there's another side to it, is that she literally just wants to be known and attention, and there's an old saying sometimes I've heard where people say infamous is just about as good as famous when it comes to wanting to get yourself known. So I think that's really what a lot of it's about, is she does a lot of this stuff that's shocking intentionally. And I would equate it to the entertainment world of somebody like what Madonna used to do in the 80s and 90s, or what Lady Gaga has done, where they do shocking things, and some people get offended by it, but they're using it for the shock factor alone. And so I kind of expect her to do those sorts of things. And, obviously she's not always a person that's going to be logical if it comes to, anybody that's going to critique Brett Grimes' game, or doesn't follow her on the player she likes. And you've heard me mention this before. It's a little bit of a conspiracy theory but I do think there was a contingent in the locker room that she was friends with outside the locker room, of people like Mike Wallace and Brandon Gibson, and they were very anti-Tannehill, and it was all about them wanting to get more balls thrown to them. And I just don't think Ryan Tannehill gives her the time of day. I don't think he gives Omar Kelly the time of day, and I think that's the basis on why those people have always had an agenda against him the last few years. So the best thing to me to do with Miko is you just, I don't follow her, and I don't really pay attention to her because there's very rarely anything that comes from her that's of value, I guess, was what I would say.
Yeah, it's gotten to the point where you just either find a way to tolerate it, or you're going to agree with her. If not, just do what she says and hit the unfollow button. And I only keep following her because I like to keep all my bases open, and I like to be able to see where everything's going on. But it's a rough follow sometimes, and that's all I'll say about that. She and Tannehill are not friends. She was friends with Mike Wallace. She didn't like how he was shipped out. He was friends with Gibson. She didn't like how he was shipped out. Hartline, I don't know about Hartline. I don't know if she was friends with Hartline so much, but birds of a feather flock together, and you could tell what was going on there.
Very obvious. Kathy, do you have any thoughts on the situation there?
Twitter life is so much better when you're not following her. I couldn't put up with it anymore. I don't go out of my way to read her tweets, but when something like this happens today, I may glance at it, but it's just funny to me to see the kind of attention that she wants, and I don't understand why anyone would want that, but I mean, to each their own. The fans that follow her have fun, but I'm gonna stay unfollowing her.
Yeah, and we have Brett Grimes obviously on the roster, and he's going to be with the Dolphins in 2015. But all bets are off after the 2015 season just due to his contract and his age, and he needs to really play at a high level this year to really warrant staying on with the team in 2016 and beyond. So we'll see what happens there. But I know there are many Dolphins fans upset with the way that she has handled things. And now we are joined by Arthur Ray, who we talked about at the top of the show. Arthur, this is Matt Canada at PhinManiacs. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right, Arthur. On the phone with us is also Louis Sung and Kathy D'Amato, who you know, and Chad Ronenbaum. And we've all been following your story, us Dolphins fans across the country, all football fans across the world, basically. And we talked about your story at the top of the show. And, you know, a week after you signed the National Signing Day to go to Michigan State, you were diagnosed probably with the toughest news of your life. If you could, just bring us back to that point in time and what it was like and the emotions that were running through your head. And can you even describe the emotions?
Just shocked, shocked, definitely, sort of lost. I didn't know what to do. I was 17. I was an athlete. I never heard of cancer happening to a guy like myself. And, me and my family were both just confused, and I didn't know what was going to happen next, whether I'd have a leg or whether I'd be able to continue my career or what. It was just a real confusing time for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, none of us on right now can imagine what you went through. I have relatives who were diagnosed with cancer who battled it, but it's never happened to me individually or anyone else here. So obviously, we aren't in your shoes. We don't know what it was like. We can only live through your words and what you tell us and your story and everything else. So you battled cancer. You did everything. What were the doctors telling you throughout the whole process in terms of football and whether or not you would be able to play ever again?
Well, the first diagnosis, doctors weren't nice, and football was out of the question. They told me I'd barely be happy to walk with my grandkids. I laugh thinking about that today. But it was real rough, man. I first got my first sign of hope when I met with Dr. Gattelis. That was my surgeon at Chicago Rush, and he gave me the first news, and he allowed for me to be optimistic going through the process, and it's because of the spot of my tumor that I'm able to still play right now. My cancer was right in the middle of my tibia, so the doctors didn't have to touch my knee or ankle, so that's why I was able to continue playing once I got healthy.
Now talk us through your support system throughout the entire process. Obviously, I'm sure you needed a lot of people supporting you. You had just signed your national letter of intent for Michigan State. How was their support for you? Were they allowed to even talk to you because of the NCAA, all of their rules and such? And, what was it like with your family, with Michigan State family, with the NCAA, with everyone around you?
My family was tremendous. My family and my girlfriend at the time, they were my biggest support system. And, it was great for me. I couldn't ask for better support from them. Michigan State, they took the weight off my parents' shoulders. Coach D'Antonio, guaranteed that I'd have my scholarship, and he guaranteed that I'd be able to get my degree from Michigan State, whether I played it down or not. So, that was real great news for my family. And, it was the NCAA, we really didn't have too much eligibility contact back then. I had signed my national letter, and I was a few months from graduating high school, so it wasn't too many rules dictating the contact. So I was pretty much in tune with my position coach, Coach Dan Rochard at the time, and me and Coach D, we talked a lot.
That's, obviously what you need, that support system around you to be able to get through everything, because obviously I'm sure you were down in the dumps and everyone's just around you lifting you up. Now, you had 9 surgeries, you had a few setbacks. Finally, in 2011, 4 years after signing your letter, you walked on the field and played for Michigan State. Talk us through that moment of, running out of that tunnel for the first time, 4 years after signing that letter, after 9 surgeries, after multiple setbacks, after the first doctor telling you would never be able to walk again, what was going through your mind as you were walking and running out of that tunnel and playing on the football field after all that you went through?
Relief, man. Relief. It was it had got dark for me. Got real dark. The healthier I got, the more I started to realize that no one thought I was going to be able to get back to that point. And it was I sort of had to pick myself up during those days, and especially when I was at Michigan State, I was by myself because nobody around me really knew what I had to deal with mentally. But it was those mental battles that I had to overcome on a daily basis that allowed me to get to that point. But man, it was so much relief. Me being able to run out of Spartan Stadium as a player for the first time, that was just step one for me. Everybody thought that was the end. And I just thought that was step one. I thought that ended my chapter of being sick and being on crutches and having to meet with doctors every other week. I thought that ended that chapter. So it started a new chapter for my football career. 2011. After that first game, I was focused. It was I played scout team that whole entire year, and I just knew that with more work and more constant trying to perfect my craft, that I'd be able to get back to the playing as a high level athlete.
So that's obviously certain inspirational stuff there. Now, 2011, you were on the active roster. 2012, you were left off while you finished your degree in communications. NCAA was gracious enough to grant you 2 more seasons of eligibility, where you then transferred to Division II Fort Lewis in Colorado, where you reunited with your former coach, John Smith, who took over the program just days after you transferred over there. You were team captain in 2013 and 2014. What was your experience like there? How did that help you prepare for your dream of playing in the NFL? And of course, it led you to the tryout with the Miami Dolphins.
Fort Lewis was different. I went from Chicago, big city, to East Lansing, huge college town, love the sports, to Durango, Colorado. It's a mountain town, 6,000 feet above elevation. The altitude was different. The fan base wasn't really there. People didn't really care too much about football. It was just more of a outdoors town. More of a hiking and kayaking and different things. Great scenery though, great mountains, and it was a perfect place for me, man. It was away from everything, away from all the noise. I had to deal with a lot of noise in Michigan State, a lot of different people in my ear, a lot of different people giving their opinions on the things that I should do with my life. I was able to go to Colorado and sort of clear my head and focus on what I wanted to do, and that's play football and play at a high level. I got down to Fort Lewis, and I knew I was coming from Division I school, and I didn't want to walk in there as a cocky guy or anything. I'm not like that anyway. I wanted to earn the trust of my teammates, and I was grateful when they voted me as a captain. I had only been up there 3 months, and I was grateful that I had won their trust and I had earned their respect. And Fort Lewis, the whole ride was fun. Coach John L. Smith is a character. He's a funny guy, and I had no idea he was gonna be coaching at Fort Lewis. I had got on campus, and then 2 days later, here comes walking John L. Smith. So I said it was a match made in heaven, I guess. But playing in the RMAC and playing in Durango, and just my entire time at Fort Lewis, it was great for me, man. I was able to get back on the field and contribute exactly how I wanted to. I wanted to be a big part of the team. At Michigan State, I wasn't granted that opportunity, so I had to move on, and it was great for me.
Arthur, this is Chad Ronnebaum. Again, thanks very much for coming on the show. Your story in itself is just an inspirational story for so many people. And as Dolphins fans, I think one thing we're always curious about and we're always interested about is how did you end up in Miami? Could you just kind of take us through like who contacted you and how you ended up getting to come down to try out with the Dolphins?
Well, after the draft day ended, I knew the Dolphins were interested, but I didn't know, the NFL draft process is real confusing. You hear about a lot of teams liking you, but you never know who's going to pull the trigger or if they are or aren't. But I got a call from my agent. He informed me that he had been in contact with the Dolphins organization, that they were thinking about bringing me down there for rookie minicamp. So I waited a couple days. I said I was praying, hoping that I'd get my opportunity, and then he called and confirmed that it was confirmed and that they invited me down. I don't know who he talked to. My agent pretty much handled it, and he called and shared the news with me. And then I was on the plane that Thursday.
Wow, that's awesome. And what when you got there, What was it like with the other rookies? Did you know any of them or relate to anybody, anything like that?
Oh yeah, the other old lineman down there, I had I think it's Mike Linkey from Illinois State. Me and him had did pro day together at Northwestern, and then all the other guys, Andre and DeVante Savage. I got real close to those guys throughout my time down there at rookie camp because we all play O-line. It was fun, man. It was fun for me. It was another confirmation. I had a good showing. It was just confirmation that I could play at the next level. I could play at a high level.
Awesome. And last question from me: is there a player, NFL or college, that you've kind of looked up to or like followed throughout your career that you tried to model your game after? Anything like that?
Back before I got sick, I was going to play center at Michigan State. So Olin Cruz was my biggest. He was the guy that I looked up to a lot. Long-time Bears center. And as I was sick, I watched the guys progress and everything. I always knew that I'd probably end up playing center again. So I always like watching Pouncey. I think I like how Pouncey plays, and he plays at a high level, plays a high motor, he's a quick guy, plays aggressive. And me and him, we graduated high school in the same year. But while I was sick, I was able to watch him progress in his career and go on to be one of the NFL's best right now.
Hey Arthur, this is Kathy. Thank you for joining us. Shout out to Kelsey for hooking us up. I just have a question. Has Joe Philbin or anyone else talked to you personally about your battle?
Oh yeah, not enough about my battle. Coach Philbin kept it all about football. I shook his hand. I thanked him for allowing me to come down there this weekend, and he just looked me right in the eye and he told me, he said, "You're a very good football player." He said, "I got great work ethic and great attitude when I come on the field." And that meant a lot coming from him. So many times, a lot of people have been, just congratulating me just because of the journey and the battle I've been through, and it feels good to have your work, hearing a compliment like that from a coach of his status, the NFL coach, telling me that he believed in my abilities and different things like that. So that was another confirmation for me.
What was it like for you, Arthur? Going through the process of the mini camp with all the other rookies and being in an NFL environment and being part of the team and just going through everything, the two practices on Saturday and all the drills, getting instruction from the coaches. What was like that for you? Was it everything you thought it would possibly be, or was it just a whole bunch more?
Dream come true, man. Dream come true. It's been a dream of mine for so long, and at one point it seemed dark. It seemed like it would never come true. But I never let that thought creep into my head too far. And I see it, watch it come true this weekend, and be around NFL coaches, be in the NFL facility, and being able to learn a little bit of an NFL playbook. It was great for me. I felt right at home. Felt like I was meant to be there. And my spirit just came out on the field. I turned into a little kid again. So it's been something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and I'm definitely not done fighting for it. And I'm sure I'll get another chance to do it soon.
Now that leads me to my next question. Just a few more for you before we let you go. Have you heard anything back from the Dolphins? I know you were there on a tryout basis. Have they talked about offering you a contract, or they just kind of left you in the dark there and just saying we'll see how things progress? Have you heard from any other NFL teams who are interested in looking at you?
No, I haven't heard from any other teams, but the Dolphins had great things to tell my agent. They're definitely interested. I guess we're gonna wait to down the road, see how things go ultimately. But I'm just excited, man. Excited to even be considered, to even have my name floating around NFL teams of interest. And I'm just looking forward to whatever happens next.
Good. Well, certainly best of luck to you. We hope, obviously, the Dolphins' offensive line is in flux, and there's a lot of open positions, and certainly things can happen down the road. One question that I just thought of, your story is very inspirational. Your story is something that some think can be made into a movie feature or even an ESPN 30 for 30. Has there been any talk of that kind of stuff happening down the road? If things don't work out in the NFL, just your whole story of the battling the cancer and coming back and getting that tryout?
Oh, well, I haven't talked to anybody personally about it, but I mean, I pretty much have my ideas, and a few of my family say things like that. They just joking around, but yeah, it's I'm pretty sure somebody probably will contact me about it.
Good, good. Hopefully something happens with that. And I believe we have one more question from Kathy.
What advice would you give to others who are battling cancer or people who have been affected by it?
I can't hear you. Can you repeat the question?
What advice would you give to others who are battling cancer?
Oh, okay. Oh, stay positive. Try to smile. You know, laughter and happiness and smiles definitely help me. You know, I say nothing positive can be bred from anything that's negative. So, you know, I try to keep my spirits high when I was in the hospital, and I definitely think that went a long way in maintaining my body and my strength and helping me recover. So I just tell anybody that's dealing with any type of struggle, especially if they're on chemo right now, try to keep your spirits high. Hang around the people that make you happy, and keep them close, keep them tight, and, you know, try to allow them, try to enjoy them, and get your mind off of what you're dealing with as much as possible, and that definitely will go a long way. You know, throughout this process, you know, you're gonna have ups and downs. You know, you gotta try to stay neutral as much as possible. You gotta try to stay as optimistic and positive as much as possible. You know, just me speaking from experience, you know, sometimes the doctors aren't really as positive, or they don't sound as really as optimistic as you do. You can't really let that affect you. You gotta keep your stay level headed, and that's why the support system is so important. That's why your faith has to be real important.
Well, Arthur, we certainly appreciate you joining us here tonight. Obviously, your story is extremely inspirational, and just listening to it, you know, gives me goosebumps here, and just brings me back my relatives who have fought cancer. Some have survived, some have succumbed to it, and, you know, just inspirational stuff from you. We're really proud of, you know, everything you've done. I know I'm pulling for you. I'm sure Dolphins fans all across the world are pulling for you, and even fans of the NFL are pulling for you. So we hope that everything works out for you. Regardless of whether it's the Dolphins or not, we hope to see you in the NFL one day, and hopefully you get your chance to prove yourself and make an impact. Although you've already made a huge impact just on your battle alone.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you guys for having me again. I'll come on anytime.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. Good luck with everything, okay?
All right, thanks.
All right, take care. All right, so, man, inspirational stuff there. Really inspirational stuff. Goosebumps.
Yeah, I'll definitely say that. I mean, again, just hearing it straight from his mouth. I mean, you really have to imagine just the horror and the sheer pain that he had to be feeling, not just physical because of all the stuff that he was going through, but the chemo and all that stuff, just the emotional, the spiritual struggles that he had to put up with. I mean, his dream was to play football, and that dream was violently and horrifically ripped away from him. And the added unfortunate bonus that his very life could have been next. So for him to come back all the way to the point where he can suddenly play football again, I mean, again, it's a miracle in and of itself that it didn't get to him. So now that he actually gets to play football again, that's like the ultimate reward for enduring the process.
Just the way he fought, and just the way, you know, even when people were telling him that he couldn't and he wasn't and he wouldn't, he ignored them and kept on pushing through and made his own decisions and set his own attitude and set his own path. And, you know, now he's in the NFL or fighting for a chance to be in the NFL, and had the opportunity with the Miami Dolphins organization, who was gracious enough to give him a chance, and hopefully that leads to opportunities down the road, whether with the Dolphins or with somebody else. You know, obviously, like I told him, we're all rooting for him to be in the NFL one day and to get his chance. In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Rob Proffitt. Like I mentioned at the top of the show, he's well known for his film work and analyzation, and even, I don't even know if that's a word, but analyzing, you know, prospects. And we're going to talk to him about the draft. He'll be joining us in literally just under a minute. I believe he's calling in right now as I speak. So I'm very anxious to hear his thoughts on the Dolphins roster construction, on the way the draft went, on the way everything unfolded. Specifically, we've all seen the reports about DeVante Parker and his freakish athletic skills and everything that goes along with it. We've heard a bit about Jordan Phillips and what he can possibly bring to the defense if he gets his motor in gear and moving the right way. But really, I think we're all interested in hearing about the late round guys. The guys like Jamil Douglas, the guys like Bobby McCain and Tony Lippett and Jay Ajayi, and what kind of impact can they make on the Dolphins this coming year in 2015? Because if some of those guys can really make a difference on this roster, the Dolphins have a real good shot, not only making the playoffs, making some noise in the playoffs as well. So, we're going to have to see, how that all shakes out and how Joe Philbin and the rest of the coaching staff use these prospects. And if he gets them on the field from day one, the Dolphins are in a win-now mode or win-now position, at least for the coaching staff they are. So we'll see how much trust they put in these rookies to make an impact on the field. Right now, Rob Proffitt is on the line with us. Like I mentioned, Twitter name @BreakingDownFilm, no G at the end of breaking, it's just breaking. Rob, thank you for joining us here on PhinManiacs Live.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate that.
All right, Rob, you're well known on Twitter for your insights into the Dolphins organization, your insight into college prospects, your insights into, looking at film and everything else. We just want to talk about the NFL draft and the Miami Dolphins, and Louis Sung and Kathy D'Amato and Chad Ronnebaum are here with us on the line as well. Just your general thoughts first, and then we'll get into each individual prospect that the Dolphins drafted and some undrafted free agents. Your general thoughts on their draft and what they accomplished and what they did. Obviously, Jordan Phillips looked like the best player available at that point. We heard it was split in the draft room, according to the Sun Sentinel. Do you think they had a successful draft and came out on top with some quality players?
Yeah, I do. I was actually a big fan of the draft. I think it built some big needs, not only for game one. Somebody like DeVante Parker, who I think is going to be penciled in as the day one starter, but guys who in the future could play big roles for the franchise. As you mentioned, Jordan Phillips and someone like Bobby McCain, who could sit under Brent Grimes for a year. Maybe even Cedric Thompson or Tony Lippett. These are guys who are kind of bring their lunch pail, everyday type workers, sort of in the mold of basically Dolphins bullets. Current player Jarvis Landry, and it's going to be interesting to see over the next few years how those guys develop. I know you mentioned being split on the Jordan Phillips pick. I think that's probably spot on, and the reason why is I think that was probably much more of a Mike Tannenbaum pick than a Dennis Hickey pick.
Yeah.
If you kind of look down the line of the players, when you talk about somebody like DeVante Parker, Bobby McCain, Jay Ajayi, Cedric Thompson, and Tony Lippett, these are guys that are hard workers, dedicated, who love to play football. When you put on the film, you see it in the way they play. From whistle to whistle, these are hard workers. The Jordan Phillips pick and the Jamil Douglas, I think Tannenbaum's thumbprint is clearly on those two picks.
What are your insights on Parker, his strengths and weaknesses, maybe?
I'm sorry, I had a hard time hearing that question. Can you say that one again?
What are your insights on Parker, maybe his strengths and weaknesses?
From what I heard was what's my insight on Parker. I think Parker is he's a guy that, at 6'3", 210 pounds, some of the closest guys in the business that I trust as far as their insight, they compare him to AJ Green, which is that's a pretty big comparison if you look at the career kind of AJ spent on. DeVante Parker's a hard worker. He loves the game of football. He can high point balls. He's not afraid to go across the middle. He's going to be a guy that's going to every day go with Jarvis Landry and Greg Jennings, and they're going to work and get better.
He's going to bring something to the Dolphins organization that Mike Wallace never did, and that's that desire and the love for the game, the passion. Again, he's going to work hard, and I'm very excited about DeVante Parker. I'm excited about what he brings, his element to the offense. Again, he can hop on balls. He's going to be someone who has much more diversity to his game than anybody the Dolphins currently have or had in a long time.
Yeah, we're all certainly excited about Parker. We saw the film clips and we saw his tape coming out, and hopefully he can do great things for the Dolphins. You mentioned that Jamil Douglas and Cedric Thompson, Mike Tannenbaum's fingerprints were all over those picks. What do you mean by that? Just their style of play, or just what's the meaning behind that?
Well, the Jordan Phillips and Jamil Douglas picks. These are guys who are clearly talented players. I mean, extremely talented. But when you watch them play, not all the time are they putting forth their max effort. There's times where they take plays off, but they have extremely talented resume where they can make some really great plays. To me, if you kind of look at, and I know it's just a short history and Dennis Hickey's career, but he picks players that are hard workers, determined. They love the game of football. And I think throughout the draft process, there was real questions concerning that when it comes to Jordan Phillips and Jamil Douglas. People openly question whether they love the game or not. But no one's ever questioned their raw, natural talent. To me, if you kind of step back and just look at the MO of Dennis Hickey and the type of players he likes, everybody that he's really gotten has been that hard-working, lunch pail type player. But then you add somebody like Jordan Phillips and Jamil Douglas, who there's open question marks about. Mike Tannenbaum is a sucker for talented players, and there's nothing wrong with that. I was talking to somebody the other day. The Dolphins, Jordan Phillips kind of reminds me of a former defensive tackle drafted in the mid-'90s named Gerald Gardner. He's a player that was drafted in the first round out of Baylor, and he's about 6'6", and he played just under 300 pounds. He came in the league almost just like Jordan Phillips with some back issues. He's a guy that never really lived up to his height, but the talent was there. A few years later, we drafted another defensive lineman who was 6'6", but he was only about 235 pounds, extremely talented, out of Akron, and he turned into maybe a Hall of Famer named Jason Taylor. So there's nothing wrong with drafting for talent. I just think that those picks were clearly more Tannenbaums than Hickey's.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of agree with you there on his style of picks. He reminds me a little more, not identical by any stretch, but of some of the Jeff Ireland type picks. I always thought Ireland was more about what the player was on combine specs. How big were they? How fast were they? How many bench presses could they do relative to what their playing career was? Because when you look at Jordan Phillips, clearly he has not had a lot of film. He hasn't played a lot of games because he's been injured, and I have seen those questions on his motivation and stuff. And I liked your comparison to Daryl Gardner because he is a real similar type of player, so it'll be interesting. Following Twitter, there's been a ton of people talking about Jay Ajayi, if I'm pronouncing his name right, the running back out of Boise State. And we're very, I've watched a lot of film on him, and a lot of people are considering, is he the number 2 back, or will Damian Williams be the number 2 back with Lamar Miller? And I've watched some film on him. He's a very good one-cut upfield runner, but I haven't seen a lot of film to know that he's a real physical runner. If there's not a hole there, can he push the pile for a yard or two and get those yak yards? So I was just curious, have you watched a lot of film on him, and what's your opinion on where he'll fit in with the Dolphins?
Oh yeah, if you kind of go back maybe 3 years ago on my Twitter account, you can look up where I was talking about Jay Ajayi. 3 years ago, this is a guy who put up some monster numbers at Boise State. He's a hard-working guy, as evident by the knee injuries. There's a lot of he has that kind of bone on bone. He has some wear in his tendons. But this is a guy that in his ligament. This is a guy that works hard at what he does. He put up something like over 1,800 yards and like 28 touchdowns last year at Boise State. This is a guy who can carry the load. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. I believe he had 50 catches last year. He's a hard worker, and you mentioned he's more of a one cut. That's probably spot on. He's not as power. Some people compare him to Marshawn Lynch. I don't see that at all. He does not have that power, but he has great vision, and he's elusive enough to make the first guy miss. Jay Ajayi, if it wasn't for the knee concerns, this is a guy who probably goes in the second round. And honestly, I don't think the Dolphins have anything to worry about in the near future. And I've seen that before. I've seen some kind of big time national writers mention, the possibility that, Ajayi's career could be short. I don't see that at all. John Elway played his whole career without ACLs in his knees. I'm not saying you get that kind of durability out of a running back, but I don't think that's going to be an issue, especially for a position that, historically and across the league, they struggle to get into a second contract. I think Ajayi is going to be a great player for the Dolphins. I don't know that he beats out Lamar Miller this year, but I would not be surprised if he's not started by next year.
Yeah, I'm great you mentioned that, because I was kind of noticing similar things on film with him. Is if anybody hasn't, go to YouTube or wherever you want to go to watch highlights of him, and it's unbelievable how quick he cuts and goes upfield with a one-cut move. He's not a guy that dances around, and he's got good size to be able to do that with. But I didn't see a lot of put your head down and run linebackers over out of him. And so what I think you'll see him doing more with Miami is getting that, probably this season more that 5 to 10 carry role, in relief of Lamar Miller. And if he's healthy and looking good, I think he is going to make it hard for Miami to sign maybe Lamar Miller next year with the way running backs get paid in the league. So anyway, thanks for your thoughts.
Okay, Rob, it's my turn. This is Lewis. I was curious about what you thought about the idea of moving Michigan State wide receiver Tony Lippett to cornerback. Apparently the film was enough that the Dolphins decided, hey, we can do something with this. He's 6'2". Some people have him listed as 6'3". He's supposedly more fluid at wide receiver since that's where he's more experienced, but the Dolphins seem to think that he can be a really good cornerback. What's your opinion on that, especially considering the apparently limited film there is of him at cornerback?
Yeah. I actually think Tony Lippett is initially going to be a developmental player, but Tony Lippett, as I mentioned earlier, he's one of the guys that's directly cut from the same kind of mold that Jarvis Landry is. This guy's just a football player, man. He loves football. When you put on the film and you watch him, anywhere he played, whether it's wide receiver, whether it's cornerback, a lot of people maybe have forgotten about this, but if anybody can remember back to last year, it kind of made SportsCenter's top 10. It was where the Baylor punter got absolutely blasted on national television. That was Tony Lippett who laid that hit on the Baylor punter. This is a guy who just loves football, and I think he's going to work hard. I think initially he's going to have some probably some growing pains and some developmental curve that he's going to have to deal with. He's to me he's a little bit different from the mold that Kevin Coyle has kind of shown, which is confusing because Kevin Coyle has sort of like the more smaller, explosive type cornerback. And as you said, Tony Lippett is big, 6'2", 190 pounds or so. But Tony Lippett, nobody can question his desire and his passion for the game. You put on the film, and wherever he's at, he's just making plays. He's one of the players that I'm really excited about, and I think he's going to stick around because I think he's going to outwork anybody that's really around him. And I think he has some developmental curve issues, but I'm excited to see what Tony does.
So basically, what you're doing is you're looking at him, you're looking at his personality and such, and you're seeing a Jarvis Landry, and you're going off the idea that it's his determination more than his actual talent level that's going to make him a really good player.
Well, I think I combine that. I think he does have talent. As you mentioned, there is limited film on him at cornerback. But he showed flashes when he played there. He was a guy that he broke up passes. He got involved. I'm not sure how many catches, but I've seen one thing where he didn't allow. And I know this was a very short sample size, maybe 10 or 15 passes were thrown his way, but I'm not sure that he even allowed a reception. So this guy does have some talent. He has some natural ability. It's going to be up to them to polish him up, kind of clean that diamond up, and see if they found the diamond in the rough. I think the Dolphins were willing to risk that at that point in the draft to say, hey, listen, we're going to take this guy who we know is going to work hard, who we see is big and physical. He loves the game of football. We think we can make this guy into a good football player.
Do you think that he could possibly pull what Patrick Peterson had been saying he wanted to do, and he could possibly be both a D-back and a wide receiver? Do you see him being that kind of a versatile player?
I don't see that. It's difficult. The NFL is it's too difficult, I think, to do that consistently. He may be somebody who maybe once in a while could get involved in some offensive plays, but I don't really see that being a trend for him. I think he's gonna go to play cornerback, and I think he's probably gonna settle in there and stay at that position.
Hey Rob, this is Chad again, and this has been a popular debate on Twitter, and with all the film you watch, we're just curious to get your opinion. Obviously, Miami was short a pick when they had traded for Stills, if you want to call that short, or you could just call him their third-round pick, but they made the trade back in the second round where they did eventually select Jordan Phillips. But what's your opinion? Obviously they had the potential there to take Denzel Perryman out of Miami. A lot of people thought they should have taken him to come in and fill the role at inside linebacker for Miami, but instead they did acquire those extra picks, which turned into the extra players we've been talking about. Do you feel like that was the right move, or do you think they should have just sit in there and maybe took a guy like Perryman rather than do the trade back?
I think in the moment it was definitely a questionable call. But I think in hindsight, when looking back, it probably whether it be by luck, fortune, or whatever, I think it worked out for the best. Because the Dolphins were able to obviously fill a need. Jordan Phillips, a big defensive tackle, is very athletic, but also in the undrafted free agent period, they were able to pick up 3 linebackers that I had somewhere graded between the 4th and the 5th round, which I was off Twitter for a while when that kind of news broke about the undrafted free agent signing. I had been off for a while when I got on, and I seen that. It was totally unbelievable because Jeff Luke, Mike Hull, and Zach Vigil are 3 guys that I was big fans of coming out of college. So for the Dolphins to get all 3 of those guys was pretty remarkable.
Besides Parker, who will be the best draft pick 2 to 3 years from now?
If he stays healthy, it'll be Jay Ajayi. I mean, this is a guy who, if he stays healthy, he has the potential to run for 1,500 yards. I mean, if those knee concerns weren't there, which according to reports, some teams didn't even medically clear him. So some teams completely took this guy off the board because of his knee. The Dolphins obviously weren't one of them. If he can stay healthy, he is truly an impact at the running back position. I don't think anybody in this class, as you mentioned, is going to be as talented or have near the probable and possible potential that DeVante Parker is. He's a guy he has the potential to be a true number 1 elite wide receiver, but Ajayi can be, if he stays healthy, a 1,400 to 1,500 yard back in our system.
That's certainly a bold prediction, but I agree with you completely. The key word being if he stays healthy, and like we both mentioned, no short-term issues, at least from the surface, possibly long-term. In your opinion, jumping back to the linebackers of those, the 3 undrafted ones, Mike Hull, Jeff Luck, and Zach Vigil, which one of those 3 do you think has a real legitimate shot of making the roster and making some noise? Maybe not this year, but heading into the 2016 season.
I actually think all 3 have the potential to make it, and it's It's because they sort of play different positions. Jeff is going to be the middle linebacker. He's going to be plugged in at that position, and he's going to be in the battle with Koemisi. He's a two-down thumper. He's about 250 pounds. I mean, this is a kid who out of high school. Matter of fact, going into his senior year, I seen at a camp, and he was like 230 pounds as a 17-year-old rising senior in high school. He looked bigger than some juniors and seniors in college that I've seen. He's very freakishly big in his body. I mean, 250 pounds. I mean, he's a thumper, two down, but he lacks the lateral agility to get sideline to sideline. But he's going to play that middle linebacker position. Hull and Vigil, these are guys like, especially Zach, you put on the film, he's making plays everywhere. I mean, I believe he had over 150 tackles last year. You just don't magically appear with tackles that high. I mean, this is a guy whose nose is always around the ball. When you talk to Penn State people about Mike Hull, again, I do a lot of high school stuff. Mike Hull was a top 100 prospect coming out of high school. He's a very smart player. He's a guy that studies the game, is going to work hard. He puts a lot of effort into his preparation. Visual and Hull are both going to play outside linebackers. Jeff's going to play in the middle. It's a very fun and exciting time for me as a Dolphins fan to watch what plays out over this offseason. This is, as I was speaking to some people the other day, this is the first time I've been this excited about an undrafted free agent class in 30 years of being a Dolphins fan. I mean, I really don't know how the Dolphins landed these three guys in the undrafted period. I mean, it's truly remarkable. Whether all three stay, I don't know, but all three are players. And Jeff is a guy who's a late bloomer. I mean, he went to Florida State. He sat on the bench. He went to Cincinnati. He really made an impact. Kid has talent. So the summer's going to play out, and it's going to play out fun. And Dolphin fans are going to be excited about what they see.
Yeah, to throw that in there, I was, as he was mentioning how excited he was to follow that up with last year with McCain and Damian Williams and Anthony Johnson, where it's unbelievable to think they're getting these players after the draft that are starting caliber players.
Yeah, these guys are really good at finding acorns.
And they almost got Lael Collins too this year.
Almost. Dallas. I'll tell you what happened with Lael Collins, okay? Jerry Jones knew how to get to him. He went through his mom, not through Collins.
Yeah.
That was the thing. Jerry Jones knew who to talk to.
Yeah, obviously the Dolphins were close with that. Rob, thank you for your great insight into the draft and the draft process and the strengths and weaknesses of all these players. Certainly the undrafted free agents not everyone knows about, and the late guys, the Lippett's and the Jameel Douglas and the Thompsons. We all hear about Jordan Phillips and DeVante Parker, but really the guys who are picked later in the draft will make the difference when you're talking about whether a team is successful or not throughout the season. So thank you a ton for joining us. Thank you for your insight. Thank you for your time. If you're not following Rob on Twitter, you should. He has great insight, throws out great nuggets of information every single day. His Twitter name is @BreakinDownFilm. There is no G at the end of Breakin'. We'll put it up on our Twitter feed right now as well. Rob, again, thanks a ton for joining us.
Hey, I really appreciate it. I'm pretty honored and humbled to be a part of this, so thank you. I really want to thank each one of you, and I look forward to next time talking to each one of you.
All right, man. We'll definitely have you on again soon. Have a great night. We'll talk to you on Twitter, okay, bud?
Y'all too. Thank you.
All right, take care. All right, so that's Rob Proffitt. Again, very, very insightful guy. If you're not following him, you need to, because he is a great follow.
Goodbye.
Sorry, that was the call messaging. You might have heard that. All right. So we talked to draft. We talked about Arthur Ray. We talked about Miko Grimes a little bit. We talked about the rookie mini camps. We're going to end our show tonight with the only thing that we could possibly can't avoid, because it's all over the national news, and that is, of course, Tom Brady and the cheat-reats. Did I say that right?
That's what Don Shula called them, and he was right.
So, speaking of that, Lewis, you were at the 50th season anniversary unveiling Just take us through the reaction in the room when Don Shula came out with that zinger. Of course, no one expected it to happen. Facial reactions, public relation reactions, and then you interviewed Don Shula afterwards as well, an exclusive for PhinManiacs.com. What was the general feelings there?
He didn't even I don't even remember him actually calling them the Cheatriots again. Now that was the initial thing that he had said months ago and that's when the media went after him for how dare you say that Bill Belichick is a cheater? He's the best coach who's ever coached. And I'm like, okay, well, you want to believe that, that's fine. But I mean, he said it, and when he said that they didn't deflate any balls, it wasn't so much it was a zinger, it was that he was kidding around, but the story came out so fast about how he said it that it made it sound like he was purposely going out just for the sake of attacking the Patriots, and that's just not how it was. He was messing around, and he was talking about how when he was coaching, he wanted to make sure that it was a team effort, that was what the team was what mattered. No one was immune to any sort of criticism. No one was immune to any kind of problems. It was a team effort, and that was what he really stressed throughout the whole thing. And when I interviewed him, I basically asked him, what was your greatest memory? And again, the camaraderie, that sort of thing. He's an 85-year-old man who still is very much a sharp mind, and he's very witty the way he was joking around and having fun. He definitely knows what was going on. He was having a great time talking and having fun. But, I mean, if we're going to talk about just Deflategate and Don Shula, really the whole thing was overblown simply because of what he said. It was said in jest. He was messing around, and it was meant just for us to have a good laugh. It wasn't so much that he was going after them.
Yeah, I mean, that must have been a great experience for you. Talking to Don Shula, we saw the picture that I retweeted and was posted up on your timeline and Pablo's timeline. And you were one-on-one with him. You were one-on-one with the greatest coach in NFL history. Talk about freaking awesome.
Yeah, it was cool, but when you start to get used to it, you get used to it, man.
Here you go, going big time on us.
I'm not going big time. You're gonna get used to it too if you ever come down here to Miami.
Yeah, I know. They said when I interviewed for the NFL jobs, they said you get used to it after a few weeks. So it's just like you get to know them on a personal level instead of seeing them at an NFL level, and you really get to know them as a person. Obviously, the Patriots news has made waves all over the country, to adults, to everywhere, including 7-year-olds. And Chad's son is 7, Mason Rottenbaum, and we have some questions for him. He's joining us here on the PhinManiacs podcast. Mason, how are you doing, buddy?
Good.
Good. You excited to be on the show?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Hey, what do you think about the Patriots?
They're bad.
Yeah, they're bad. Why are they bad?
Because they're the Dolphins' worst enemies.
They did what?
They're the Dolphins' worst enemies.
Oh, they are the Dolphins' worst enemies, and I know in your household you're all Dolphins fans, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mason, just a few questions for you. Your favorite player of all time, who is it? Marino. Has Dad ever showed you tape of Dan Marino? Any highlights, any film?
Yeah.
Yeah, just the way he throws the ball. Do you think he's better than Ryan Tannehill?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how about Tom Brady?
Yeah.
Is that
What?
a yeah or a eh?
Yeah.
All right. So Dan Marino is your favorite player of all time. Who's your favorite current player?
Ryan Tannehill.
Ryan Tannehill. Do you have Tannehill's jersey?
Mm-mm.
No. Dad, when are you
Can't
gonna
get on that
When are you gonna get Mason his Tannehill jersey?
after he signs the contract, right?
Yeah, basically. Now, Mason, I'm assuming you're a huge Dolphins fan like your dad. You watch the Dolphins with your dad on a weekly basis when the season is happening?
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell us, does your dad get upset at the TV? Does he scream? Does he yell? Does he throw things across the room?
No.
No. Is he calm, nice, cool, collected?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Nothing like me, because Mason, let me tell you, when the Dolphins are playing, I throw stuff across the room. My wife has to take away my daughter from me. She's 10 months old now, so she's just a little baby. But when the Dolphins were playing, she was like 3 or 4 months old, and man, I tell you, Mason, I could not hold my baby daughter in my hands because I was just so upset. Because the Dolphins do a lot of funny things, and they just mess up all the time, right?
Mhm.
Now, do you get upset when the Dolphins are losing?
Mhm.
Is that a or a?
Uh,
Okay. So what makes you happy after the Dolphins lose? When the Dolphins lose, Mason, I'm
You need
28
something to
years
cheer
old.
you up.
I'm 28 years old, Mason. You're 7 years old. I have 21 years on you. That's a long time, buddy. Now, when the Dolphins lose, right? I don't talk to anybody for like the rest of the day. I don't watch Sports Center. I don't watch TV. I don't listen to the radio. What do you do to make you happy again?
uh, we go play football
You
outside.
go play football. Does your dad play football with you?
Mhm.
All right, that's good. Now,
Who's the quarterback when you play?
Me, my dad.
I'm sure you're a lot better than him, though, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, Mason. Just a few more questions for you, buddy. Who's the toughest player in the National Football League? Who is it?
Sue.
The Dominican Sue. Can you say his first name?
Good time we can.
Ah, that's
That's
better
pretty
than.
good.
I think that's better than Kathy too. And then
Whoa. Easy
Mason,
now.
one more question for you, bud. How many wins do you think the Dolphins are going to get this year?
Um, 50.
50?
50.
50 or 15? All right, silence there. I think Mason might have meant 15 there, which we'll take. We'll take a 15.
Hey, 15-1. That's pretty good.
We'll
Super
absolutely
Bowl,
take
baby.
that. Mason, do you think the Dolphins are winning the Super Bowl this year?
Mhm.
All right, Mason. Thank you
That's a
for
good
joining us
answer.
on PhinManiacs Live. It's your live radio debut, and you picked the right place to make your debut. You're going to be a famous kid one day. We know it. Don't forget about the little guys when you make it, okay?
Mhm.
All right, buddy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank
All
you.
right, that's 7-year-old Mason Ronenbaum joining us. Awesome kid. I think he's cooler than all of you on the show right now.
Um,
All right. So we heard from Lewis about the Flakegate. We heard from Mason. Kathy and Chad, any thoughts from you before we end the show tonight?
On the Deflategate thing, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing, and this has been crazy. The cover of it of just national. I've heard Steve Christie talk about it. I've heard John Elway, Brett Favre. Every Boomer Esiason and everybody in their dog. It seems like is being asked, was the punishment for Brady correct? And there's just the one thing it's really caught me. And obviously, I'm biased. I'm a Dolphins fan, and most people are biased that are answering the question. But you got to look at the game itself. And a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it doesn't make that big a difference." And I disagree with it for the game, because it was a game where it was raining, and they knew that it was going to rain going into that game. And anybody that's played football in their backyard knows if it's wet, a deflated football is a lot easier to catch. And Lewis, as you've pointed out many times, the offense that the Patriot runs, they throw very few balls down the field. They throw a lot of quick, short passes. And I guess my point has to be that if you're playing in a game that's going to be wet conditions and you're going to throw a lot of short to intermediate range passes, a deflated football clearly is an advantage if the other team's not being allowed to use one. So I just wanted to make that clear, that it wasn't like, I think a lot of people are stating that, well, they do this every single game. My bigger concern is I think they do it specifically, they really deflate it more when they're playing in bad weather games, is my point.
Okay, well, I would agree, Chad, except that I saw the score for that Colts game, and you know what? I don't think it would have mattered if the ball was overinflated. Just watching the way the Colts were playing. I mean, every time the Colts run into the Patriots, stuff starts going wrong for Andrew Luck.
Oh,
So
I agree. I agree with you on the outcome of the game, that the game didn't do that. But I did want to point out that you just don't know how many wet games or snowy games in the past that they did do that and not get caught. And so to me, the punishment wasn't just for this game. It was that the fact that they were trying to cover it up, and that you just don't know how long it's been going on. Because, Tom Brady's played in the league for a long time. If you wanted to go back and wonder how many bad weather games has he played in where they adjusted the football below, legal standards to gain an advantage.
Well, if you take A.J. Feely's word for it, he's been doing it since 2004 at least.
And I think that's the general assumption that he's been doing this. I mean, it's kind of obvious that he has been doing this. You're not just going to cheat once and then be done with it. Once you're a cheater, you're always a cheater, right?
Pretty much.
So,
and I would say this. I'm just for the sake of the argument, I'm beginning to wonder if Tom Brady's even going to actually get to keep his suspension, because from what we're hearing lately, it's going to sound like that Brady's not going to have any kind of suspension at all because of the just the crack staff of lawyers that he's put together. He's fighting this thing to the very end.
I look at that as a positive thing, though, Lewis, because I think all along, if Brady would have taken the route of, I wanted the air let down the balls, but we didn't intend for them to be out of legal range, or, just kind of admitted that they were trying to lower them down, but not trying to cheat. And now if he would just take the punishment, I think it would probably get reduced on an appeal. But the route they're taking, where they're attacking the league head on, I think that could backfire, and they'll just keep the punishment as is.
Well, I'm not debating that it's better for us. What I mean is that it's become so much of a he could have been so much smarter about it. I'm just speaking from a neutral point of view here. I'm not trying to speak from any Dolphins point of view or any kind of fan point of view. I'm just looking at it just as a neutral observer. If he had just given up his cell phone, well, not even given up. I was watching ESPN and I heard the Tud Wells press conference, and he basically said outright, he didn't want to take his phone away. He said that he basically tried to give them the benefit of the doubt and said, I will take your word for it. Just give me some stuff that is at least decently relevant to the situation at hand. But Brady still told them no. And the difference between this was an interesting distinction that I heard. It's different to say, I don't have anything for you to see, than it is for you to just say, no, you can't have my phone. This makes it sound like he is hiding something, and yet he's going all out on this crusade innocent without actually giving up any sort of evidence that he is innocent. I don't understand what they're trying to do here. I guess they're trying to prove that they're bigger than the NFL. I don't know why they're taking this approach. If they just give up the text, if they really have nothing to hide like they say they do, then I don't understand why he can't just give up the phone.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of questions to be answered, and we'll see it all play out in federal court. I'm sure it's going to head there.
Oh, it's going to go to court. Kraft wants to sue.
Yeah, so we'll see. Kathy, any thoughts from you on Deflategate?
I think it was a fair punishment. I hope that it stays. But regardless, let's just go and win the division, guys.
Yeah.
Amen.
Let's get 50 wins.
yeah, according to Mason, let's get 50 wins. All right, so, that's going to do it for us tonight. We talked about, and that's a good way to end it, Kathy, let's go out and win the division. It's like a little pep talk before heading out into the field and running out through the tunnel. So thanks for the motivation. I'm going to go run outside the door and eat some ice cream right now. We talked to Arthur Ray at the top of the show. What an inspirational story. We're going to try to get him some stuff up on the site about him and really get his story in writing and whatnot. Talked to Rob Proffitt about the NFL draft. We talked to Miko Grimes, of course, our favorite, celebrity, if you want to call him a celebrity, personality on Twitter. Talked about the Deflategate just now, and really, it was good to be back on the air this week after being off for a week. Continue to check out the website. It's a slow time of the year, but we're trying to pump out film analysis. We're trying to pump out other stories, other columns. Be sure to always visit PhinManiacs.com for all the latest. Follow us on Twitter. You can find our names on the podcast page, which If you're listening to this, you're listening to on iTunes, through the podcast, or on our podcast page, so our Twitter names are there. Follow us for all the latest breaking news, and we're going to continue to update the site every single day throughout the entire year, 365 days a year, 7 days a week, 52 weeks out of the year. And we'll do our best to bring you everything that we possibly can. So with that said, guys, everyone, thank you for joining us. Lewis, Kathy, Chad, it was great to have everyone back on finally together after us, missing missing each other, mixing and matching throughout the past several weeks. So hopefully we can continue to stay together in the near future. Obviously depends on Kathy's work schedule and Chad's epic adventures around the world. Me and Lewis will be here every week because that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
We're dedicated and committed to our website, unlike other two
Okay.
in this podcast. But anyways, again, thank you everyone for joining us this week on PhinManiacs Live. We hope you enjoy the show. Have a great week. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.